Good morning, and welcome to another episode of the Chronicles of a Modern Day Samurai. I'm your host, Zeus. Unfortunately, you're here stuck with me, or fortunately, however you like to think about it. But we are here in beautiful Copenhagen, Denmark. So welcome to all the listeners in Scandinavia and in the US. So hello to everyone. Man, today, I don't know if you guys do affirmations. I tend to forget. I'm not really consistent with it, which again, goes back and is against kind of my teachings, but we're human beings, I think affirmations are great. I think it allows us to, get them, kind of remind us on a daily basis as far as, what we're thankful for. And it puts things into perspective, which I think is the most important thing, right? I don't do it every day, but I do keep kind of a mental aspiration list that I keep, continuously reminding myself of. And it does help because again, here in the Western world, and hopefully you're listening to this from a free country, and if you're not, then I'm terribly sorry about your situation, and it's probably one of the most unfortunate things in life to be unfortunate enough to be born in an area where your freedom might be at risk or jeopardized. So, man, my heart does go out for those folks. If you are in the Western culture and you do live in a free state, then congratulations. You've won the lottery of all lotteries. I'm not medically, qualified to make this, statement, but or provide any real justifications. But considering the odds of making it to where you are now, to where you're able to listen to this, and to where I'm able to make this content, again, we won the lottery of lotteries because think about the thousands, if not millions, of sperm cells, right? That your sperm had to make it through to get to that egg. With all the other, factors considered, in the universe, for us to be here, to be able to do what we do, as mundane as it may seem to you, to have lunch, to have breakfast, to have dinner, to go out to the park, to go to work, to drive to work, to go to the gym. These are all things made possible because you're here, right? And the chances of you being here, just probability-wise, were very, very, very tiny. So consider yourself lucky. Again, it's kind of a daily reminder as far as, to not take things for granted, right? We can easily take things for granted. Even if we're in a shit situation, we're still lucky to be able to have the opportunity to have those problems. And I know it's very difficult to kind of think about. You're in the trenches, you've had a bad day or a bad week, you got laid off, you're dead broke. And I know it's difficult. But I think the more difficult life gets, the more important it is for you to take those perspectives into consideration. They will change your outlook, they'll change your attitude, and most importantly, your perspective on where you are in relation to the world around you. So there are people that are in far worse situations as you are, no matter how bad your situation may be. So think about those people, right? And kind of think about where you're at. It may seem bad, and I'm sure, again, I'm not devaluing like what you're going through. Whatever you're going through, a bad breakup, a divorce, a death in the family, those are all very, very, very tragic moments in life. However, for us or for you or for any one of us to think that we can go through life without having to experience one or multiple of those very, very, very difficult hardships is naive to think. Okay, so if you think that you're going to skate through this life and never die or never have to experience one of your family members passing away or an illness, it's naive, right? So if you know it's going to happen, if you know the inevitable is inevitable, if that even makes sense, it's just a matter of preparing for it mentally, psychologically, and having the right perspective so that when that stuff happens, you're prepared. Right. I mean, it's not gonna offset or make anything easier as far as like what the pain feels like. Again, I give the example of like, a death in the family. However, it is a way you're training yourself how to deal with these very difficult situations. Okay, so that it's not as devastating as it may be to someone who's not prepared. Right. It's like going into battle. If you know the battle you're going into is going to be a very treacherous, brutal, difficult, physically demanding task, which most wars are, why would you go ill-prepared, right? I mean, why would you, again, they say, why would you go to a gunfight with a sword? just doesn't make sense, right? So, in essence, if we don't prepare, if we don't do the things mentally, if we don't work on our personal development, if we don't try to strengthen our minds and our psychology, then these events that again will inevitably happen to all of us will become devastating. Okay, not hard because they are going to be hard for all of us, but devastating. And that's what we're trying to avoid. So today's topic related to that is about making more money. And I know you guys probably listening out there, probably applicable to 99% of you guys out there, including myself, want more money, right? But what does money even mean, right? I mean, I forgot to bring one here today, but if I were to hold up a $100 bill, there's something about that $100 bill with Benjamin Franklin on it that just provokes like this something inside of us, right? I mean, it's almost like we're going back to our primitive days that, we look at like meat, it triggers something inside of us. And money tends to have a pretty significant impact like that. And it's a very, very unusual phenomenon that, again, is man-made. Again, when back in the hunter and gatherer days when they didn't have currency, that never existed. I mean, they probably got the same feeling if they went 7 days without food, and then the tribe brought home game to eat, and they had full bellies. But there really isn't anything today where, man, it provokes that. Maybe sex. I mean, I would imagine for a lot of folks out there listening, sex may evoke that kind of feeling, which I completely understand. But money, this tangible thing you could buy, evokes such emotion, right? I mean, it creates fear for a lot of us if we don't have it. It creates greed if you have a lot of it and want more. So there's a whole spectrum of human emotions that comes from money, right? I mean, it's just paper. But so what I want to talk about is, for one, making more of it. But more importantly, I kind of want to bring you guys to understand and to think about your relationship with money. Okay, and that's probably the most important thing. Because again, I mean, I have a box of tissues because my nose is running, but it really, in terms of material fact, it's no different than money. I mean, this probably comes from wood, making tissues. So the same material that money's made of is the same as tissue, but we blow our nose into that. Yet we treasure money like it's our child, and some people kill for it, right? I mean, a lot of people kill for it, as you can see in the wars that we've had to see, unfortunately, even today. I mean, so literally people have killed each other over for money. So why is it so valuable? It's important, again, to analyze and to assess your relationship with money, right? If it's something that you need out of desperation, you have a much different relationship to it than viewing it as something that's a necessity, right? Because, again, the reason that's so important is because once you get it, okay, you think that everything in life that is a problem today is going to go away. And the truth is, it doesn't, okay? I am a living example of this. I remember working for the government and making a GS-11 pay, which, again, I'm not complaining about. I think back then, plus locality was, I don't know, 70,000 and change. After taxes is probably closer to 50. So it was like a normal job in terms of salary, and I got by, and I told myself at the time, and I said, man, if I could make $100,000, I mean, that, probably 10 years ago was everyone's benchmark, right? 6 figures. Nowadays, you talk 6 figures, it's like, I mean, you could pay $130,000 for a car, so it doesn't really mean much. But back then, when I was growing up, back in middle school and high school and even through college, that 6-figure income was kind of like the holy grail of like success. So if you ever met someone who made $100,000, you're like, oh my God, like that's what I want to aim towards. So when I was making $50,000, $100,000 a year was my goal. And I thought, man, if I could just make $100,000 a year, I would be great. I could buy the things I want to buy. I can go vacation to the places I want to vacation. And once I left that government job, I earned $100,000 in 3 months doing real estate. And it was fantastic. I mean, it opened up a level of freedom that I never, ever experienced before. So again, I'm kind of contradicting myself here, right? Money is not everything, but it is a necessity to do the things you want to do in life, okay? So today, I'm going to be talking about how to make more money. I'm not going to be talking about actually how to to collect more money into your bank, but I am going to talk about ways that you can think and things that you could actually do as applications that will put you in a position to make more money. And these are hard and true facts. Okay, I would really encourage or challenge anyone listening to this to say that the stuff I'm going to say isn't true. Okay, again, it's obviously results may vary, and to the degree in which you do these, it'll affect your result, obviously. But the things that I'm going to go over today are going to be very important in order for you to set yourself up for opportunities where you can make more money. And I'm talking about significantly more money. I'm not just talking another 5-10 grand a year, okay? So again, these principles apply whether you're flipping burgers at McDonald's or whether you have a plush marketing operational job at a big firm, or if you're an executive, right, making a shit ton of money, or you're an attorney. This stuff still is applicable because you're not an exception to it. I don't know what to say. So, okay. I'm going to try to use this word as sparingly as possible because I know the term value is so overused, right? But I mean, I was trying to think earlier today in preparation for this podcast, is there another word that better defines value? There really isn't. So you can keep a mental track in your mind how many times I say value, but I'll try to say as sparingly as possible while getting my point across. So your pay, okay, you watching right now, whether you're making $17 an hour, $50 an hour, $175 an hour, or more, okay? Whatever your pay is your value to the marketplace, okay? It's not a number that you're entitled to. It's not a number that is on the job description, okay? It is a direct relationship. There's a direct relationship between the amount of value that you provide to that company and the marketplace in general, okay? And your and what that is in terms of monetary value, okay? So keep that in mind, okay? It's always better to be a specialist in what you do versus a generalist because statistically speaking, if you're a generalist, okay, the odds are that there are generally a lot of people that can do what you do, okay? I'll give you just a real basic example. Again, super basic. Let's say you flip burgers at, Five Guys, McDonald's, Burger King's, whatever, okay? How many people do you think in America alone can do what you do? Take a guess. Millions, okay? If not tens, if not, probably not hundreds, tens of millions of people can do what you do, okay? So your value to that company, to that burger joint, and to society is minimum wage, okay? Fortunately, there is a minimum wage nowadays to where they can't pay you less than that amount, so that kind of protects you a little bit. But if there was no minimum wage, you'd probably make $2 an hour because, again, the amount of people out in the universe that can do what you do is vast, okay? So therefore, your compensation, your value to marketplace is very low. Now, going back to the earlier topic about generalists versus specialists, okay? Let's say that you have a small company that sells and manufactures a part of a toilet, okay? That is, however, an absolutely necessary part of a toilet, okay? It helps prevent leaks. It helps kind of run the water. It helps the flushing system. I don't know. I'm not a toilet expert. But let's say you're a company that manufactures and specializes in this one part, okay? And that's all you do, okay? And there's tens, I would imagine, companies out there that manufacture and make toilets, right? Imagine if you're so specialized and this part that you make is so great and so necessary for them to do what they do and sell, you can command whatever price you want, okay? As silly as that example is, okay? You're specializing. Your service or product is so specialized in your marketplace that you can command a price, okay? Now, that was an example of a product, but this could be said in similar principle to service, okay? If you're a waiter and you're a great waiter, okay, those don't come around very often, so you may get more pay in terms of tips. If you work for a marketing company, how do you go from, let's say, making $80,000 a year at your company, at your marketing company, to making 150, to making 200,000? How do you become an executive, VP, CEO? How do you do that, right? Again, going back to the principle of offering more valuable to who you're serving, right? In that example, you're servicing your company, who essentially is providing goods and services to the marketplace, right? So if you're hired on by a big company like that, okay, I want you to start thinking about a couple things. As opposed to going into work and doing what you're told, okay, think about some opportunities that you could do in your job that would create more money for your company, right? Because essentially your company, and I hate to break your heart here, but as special as you are, your company to them, okay, you're an asset, okay, you're a tool. I don't mean tool in a bad way. You're a tool that they use to provide a service that they need internally in order to manufacture a product or provide a service for consumers, whether that's business or consumer to consumer. So if you could make more money for them, do you think that that you would warrant a conversation, a seat at the table in which you can ask for a raise, right? Have you thought of it that way? Or do you show up to work, do what you're told at the bare minimum, check out at 3:30 when you're really supposed to be getting off at 4, and then you look forward to the weekends because on Friday night you're getting blasted with your friends at the bar, okay? Again, I'm not one to judge as far as what you do on the weekends, but again, I'm going back to your value to the marketplace. If you work extra hours, if you try harder, if you think of creative ways in which the company can make more money, do you not think that you could go to your boss or your upper management and say, hey, I have a great idea. I'm a customer service representative. I'm a customer success personnel. I'm talking to our actual customers on a daily basis. These are the feedbacks that we're getting on a daily basis as far as what we need to do. And I think that improving our system by doing X, Y, and Z would dramatically impact the way that our consumers interact and consume our product or service. Would that be a conversation that your upper management would love to have? Of course. But most people, again, I can't put a number on it. Maybe if I had to guess, 75 to 90% of people that show up for a salary position don't do that. Okay, they don't take the initiative, and that's why their salary is a reflection of what they do. Okay, you can imagine if you're a manager right now and you had an employee who did that, who looked for ways to either make your job a lot easier or your company save a lot of money or time. Wouldn't they be more valuable to you as a company? Wouldn't you be more inclined to offer a raise or a bonus to that person? Or maybe even a position in which they're moving up the ladder? So I want you to think about, okay, if you're a manager, I want you to keep an eye out for these folks. If you're these folks, then I want you to start creating more opportunities for yourself by thinking differently about what you do, okay? Not in terms of how much you get paid, but in terms of what you give back, okay? That may be additional resources, additional time, new creative ideas. It could be a full spectrum of things. But again, stop thinking about what your company can do for you. I believe JFK, if I'm not mistaken, said, think about what you can do for your country, not what your country can do for you. Think about it in the same way. Think about what you can do for your employer, your company, versus what they can do for you, okay? And I can almost guarantee that will make a significant difference in the way you get compensated over time and the way that you're viewed by your company and your peers. The other thing is we tend to always want to look out, okay? If you are unhappy with your job, you're probably looking for another job, right? That is an example of looking outward for a solution, okay? If you hate your company, fine. Go look for another job, look for another company, okay? But if it's only about pay, if you love your colleagues and your coworkers and you don't mind your company, they're not doing illegal things or immoral things, and you're just unhappy about your pay, then start looking inward, as I mentioned before, of things that you can do to provide more value to your company, to provide more value as an individual, as a professional to the marketplace. And if you do that, I can almost promise you that over time, your compensation and your living and your salary will increase. So again, look inward in the mirror versus looking outward for solutions. Stop complaining about problems. It's not about your boss. It's not about your company. It's about you. Okay, so make it about yourself on how you can improve yourself. And as a result, you will almost guarantee to have a better life and more compensation over time. The concept I want to talk about next is when you start doing this, the kind of ancillary benefit you'll get is that you'll start to notice that you're attracting more opportunities versus chasing it, right? If you don't like your job and you're applying for this job and you don't get it, you apply for another job and you don't get it. You may apply for another job and get an interview but not get it. Eventually, if you do that long enough, probability is you'll probably land another job. But what guarantee is there that you're going to be any happier or you're going to be compensated any more, correct? Because if you don't take the approach of looking inward and improving yourself, you're just looking for a higher paying job. It doesn't mean that you've gotten any better, right? So anytime that the compensation to service and value is off balance. So again, in the case that a company is paying you too much and your value and your service really isn't that valuable, it's just a matter of time that they end up looking for someone else for less pay, or they look for someone that can match their pay with actual skill set. Okay, if you get away with this for a long time, good for you, but it'll happen eventually. Contrarily, if you are doing way too more and you're overqualified for the job and you're not getting paid what you should earn as far as your skill sets, you're also going to be very unhappy because you know that what you provide to the company is a lot more than what you're getting paid. So these two things are balanced, or they ought to be balanced, and they work hand in hand. They're relative and they're correlated with each other. So you'll notice that when you start to work on yourself, when you become more valuable, when you have more skill sets, when you become specialized in what you do, and you think and you put on your creative hat as far as solutions, then you can start to realize, again, this is not something that may happen overnight, but this eventually will happen over time, that you will attract, that's the key word, attract more opportunities. In my previous video, I talk about the term lucky, right? I mean, why do successful people seem so lucky all the time? Well, it's not luck, really. It's just their preparation that meets the certain opportunity where they're able to realize that, wow, this is a great opportunity because they've earned it. They've put themselves in a position where that opportunity becomes visible to them, okay? Understand your skill sets. This is probably one of the most important concepts to understand. If you're not skilled at something, and we're not good at everything, okay, you may be good at a couple of things, okay, which is probably, in all likelihood the scenario. Some of you may be good at a lot of things. You may be a Renaissance man and be good at a lot of things. But the truth is, we have been gifted. I'm not a big religious person, but we have been gifted with something that we are good at, okay? It doesn't matter what it is. I mean, you could be an introvert and be a great reader and writer. That's okay. You don't have to be, Mr. Beast and destroy YouTube, make, that kind of money. You could be specialized and love what you do. And to understand what you're good at is really important, because what's going to end up happening is if you end up doing something for the pay, which a lot of us tend to do, wow, that job's offering another $20,000. Wow, this company's offering better benefits. If you start chasing those quantitative things, okay, money, benefits, you're not going to be happy. And if you're not happy, you're not going to be able to perform, okay? And then the longevity of what you do becomes limited because you can only be so happy for so long. I know, our parents' generation, they stuck it out for 30 years and 40 years to get that pension. Nowadays, we have the luxury or the option to not do that, okay? So it is a much different place we are now. So understand your skill sets, and really the most important thing is understand what you enjoy doing, and therefore that'll be what you're good at. There are people out there right now that are making millions of dollars skateboarding. There are people making millions of dollars playing video games. There are people making millions of dollars making content. So it doesn't have to be something where you sit at a table and you're just grinding and grinding and grinding, and then you get another raise, and then you end up staying with them. Make that choice early to go in the direction of something that you really love. It may be a very difficult decision, but you almost don't have man, I hate to say it. I mean, you don't have the the chance to do anything better, right? It's going to cost you more to stay at that job you hate than to try to really shift gears into something you love that you could, for one, like what you're doing as a living and not be so miserable all the time, but really, really have an opportunity to make some serious money. Okay. And I think that's really important. So again, if you have a job right now that you don't like, you don't have to do it overnight. I'm not asking you to quit your job, but start thinking, write down a list of stuff that you really enjoy doing. What do you do on your off time? I mean, do you like yoga? Do you like fitness? Do you like going to the gym? Are you an active person? Do you like meeting and setting up community events? I mean, what do you like to do? Really, right? Jot those things down and literally make a list of the things that make you happy, okay? And then figure out of those things, a couple of different options and ideas as far as what you can do to maybe look for a job or an opportunity. A lot of these things, if you like community building, a lot of these things are not going to have a job posting on LinkedIn, right? You're going to have to go looking for those opportunities, but that's okay. It's a place to start. The next topic I want to talk about is quantity versus quality. Now, I'm sure you guys know what the difference is. Quantity is something that's more measurable. It's more numbers. It's something you can track. Quality, however, is something that you really can't. It's how great something is done. I can't really, I don't know the definition of quality, but it's you can't explain something with using the same word. But you guys know the difference, quality versus quantity. Now, the way you make more money, the way you become more valuable to the marketplace is to have this quality of service, right? Whether you're offering a tremendously high quality product or you're offering a tremendously high quality service, right? That's how you bring more value to the marketplace, right? You can charge more for premium service, right? People charge more for premium products. If you buy a camera, for example, and you want the premium lens, you're going to have to pay for it, right? So that's an example of a product situation where the quality of the product and service is a direct correlation of the price that you pay. The same thing could be said about you as a person, okay? If you have qualities about you, remember before we talked about specialization, right? If you're specialized, which means you have a very high quality in that service and that particular skill set, you're going to be able to command more money, okay? Now, how do you do that? Well, there's several different ways. You can take courses. If your job is more software based, if it's more kind of an online platform, you can do online courses to improve your skill set, learn another skill. Now, if you're in the trades, if you're a carpenter or if you're a glass blower, I don't know, if you're a blacksmith, you can go and intern and gain the experience over time and gain experience in how to do that particular skill set, right? I mean, that is a direct way to increase your value to society and in that marketplace. The other way is if you don't have anything concrete like that to do or to improve your skill set, you can just start it on your own. All right, I'll give you guys an example. I like working with leather and wood. And so I could go out and internship for a job at a workshop. But what I decided to do was I decided to buy some wood and some leather and some tools and to start building things. Now, we talked about the portion of quantity, right? And that's what I'm talking about. You can improve your quality, which in other words means your skill set, by simply doing more, okay? So in that example, by making more and by just doing more with the tools that I have and the materials that I have, over time, eventually, I will get good at it, okay? So that is an example of how quantity, again, just doing more over time, will inevitably improve your quality. I'll give you another example. If you're in sales, okay, and you have to make cold calls, for example, it may be very uncomfortable. Your quality of calls, which means how you talk to people, how you communicate, how you convert sales, may be very low. It may be somewhere at about, let's say, 2 to 5% conversion. So you make 100 phone calls and you may convert 2 to 5. Okay, that's about industry average. Now, if you do that more, if you're right now doing 20 calls a day, and you improved or increased that by 100 calls. Okay, so there's a 5x increase in the amount of calls that you make in a given day. How quickly or how much do you think the quality of your calls will improve? By 5-fold, hopefully, right? I mean, in theory. So you can improve quality if you don't necessarily know where to go or where to turn to, if they don't have courses or anything like that, if you don't have a mentor, if you don't have scripts. You can improve the quality of, let's say, your sales calls and your conversions simply by doing more, okay? And in the beginning, if you're starting off especially at a new job or a new skill set, there are not many ways, or if there aren't many ways to improve your actual quality of work, you can really compensate for that by just doing more, okay? And that's something that most of us can control. Again, if you're in sales, you don't have to do only 20 calls. You can do 100, you can do 200. You're limited with only what you're limiting yourself to, okay? So for example, when I did real estate, I decided that I was going to make 150 calls every single day for 6 days out of the 7 days, okay? And it reflected in my results, okay? I wasn't very good at it when I began. I didn't know how to make sales calls. I've never been in sales, but I just simply followed this principle of doing more to get better. And I ended up selling 21 homes my first year. 21 homes in your first year in real estate, unusual results. But my actions, what I did on a day-to-day basis was in fact also unusually high. So as a result, again, not any surprise to me, because my actions were unusually greater than what was considered normal, my results yielded the same. Is there a big surprise there? There's not, okay? So that's just one example. Again, if you're in the sales situation, you're making cold calls, just do more. You'll get better by doing more naturally, okay? Unless, and then that of course can vary too. And the real magic to all this, okay, is if you do both, okay? If you do more and you also learn the skill set on improving your skill set, okay? And going back to your sales example, if I make more calls, again, 5 or 10x the calls that other people do, then I will increase my conversion rate by 5 to 10 fold, depending on how many calls I make. If I'm doing that and also taking courses and memorizing scripts and refining my scripts on what I say and how to respond when I'm on the phone, that also increases your conversion, okay? So you can imagine the power. It's called compounding, right? I mean, there's a compounding effect to this. If you do more, you get better. If you learn to get better, you get better. So if you add the two, your improvement and your conversion will increase, exponentially more than someone who does just alone more or just decides to refine their craft. It's an exponential growth, not a linear turn. This is an extremely powerful concept, not only in terms of sales and your job and your compensation, but also in terms of finance. I don't know if you guys have heard the book, The Compounding Effect. Interest increase over time can be immense, right? In a short time, it doesn't make that big of a difference, but over time, that interest that's accrued and accrued and accrued that is compounded onto the principal, which is increasing, is how most banks make their millions and millions of dollars. So this is a very, very important concept for you to understand and is applicable to making more money and becoming more valuable in the marketplace. The next topic I want to talk about is if you don't have a particular skill set that you can think of right now where you're like, man, I'd like to do that in order to make more money. Maybe you can't think of something that you really enjoy or maybe find opportunities. Another thing that you can do is be a first mover or a first comer to a particular industry. Right now, I'll give you an example. AI is kind of the big thing. I mean, there are literally hundreds, if not thousands of companies that are coming out with different AI tools. So the folks that are onto it now have a great opportunity to become an industry leader because there just simply isn't as much competition, okay? As time goes on and as this stuff becomes more commonplace, the competition will stiffen, the competition will become a lot bigger, and it'll be a little bit harder for you to gain traction in that industry. So the other thing that I would, again, encourage is if you can't think of anything that you enjoy that you would want to put your resources into, try to find something that you enjoy, of course, but also is maybe new to the market, right? Again, if you're living in an area and I'll give you an example. If you travel to a new country, Japan, for example, they do a lot of things that are technologically advanced. They have a new vending machine that's kind of cool. If you're the first to come back to your town and if you're able to get your hands on this vending machine, you may be the first comer and you may have a great market competitive advantage. Okay. So think of also ways that you could be first or, kind of newer to the market. The next huge thing, again, this might trump everything we've said so far in this podcast, is to be a good communicator. Now, I'm going to create a whole new video on this topic alone, but I did want to brush up on it I did want to mention it because it is so important to what we're talking about today as far as making more money and becoming more valuable to the marketplace, okay? Most people, what do you think when you hear someone, if I tell you, okay, what comes to your mind, what type of person comes to your mind when you think of someone who is a good communicator? I'll give you a couple seconds. Okay, you probably thought of someone in your life who speaks very well. They're articulate, they can communicate well, they get their point across, and they're motivating, right? Wrong. Those are probably people that are very charismatic, okay? Now, they could also be good communicators. I'm not dogging your Uncle Sam. I get it, okay? However, the point I want to make in this is that a good communicator is not only a great speaker, okay, it may include, which helps, but they're fantastic listeners. Again, I'll repeat that. The best communicators are the best listeners. Okay. Why? Because communication is about one thing. It's about connecting. It's about connection to the other person you're talking to. Whether you're sitting in front of a camera or whether you're sitting one-on-one, it's about connecting with the people that you're communicating with. So if you're just talking the whole time, the other person probably isn't getting the same experience as you are. Okay. It's an interactive thing. We're human beings. So you have to be a great listener. Now, how do you become a great listener? Again, I don't want to go down the rabbit hole in this topic as far as communication because I'll create a whole new video on it. But what makes a great listener? Asking great questions. So if you're at work and you're kind of, you listen to this podcast and you go, man, I want to make more money. Zeus has provided some rules and some guides and some ideas. How do I make more money? Show up to work and ask questions. Okay. Asking questions does a couple of things. The most important of which is it lets people know at your workplace, at home, at conventions, wherever you are, it lets people know that you're genuinely interested in getting to know the process and the company and whatever. Okay. So ask a lot of questions. Now, don't ask, there are such things as dumb questions, people. Okay. So you can ask a dumb question, but come up with genuine questions that really comes from the heart that lets people know that you're genuinely interested in knowing more about whatever you want to learn more about. Okay. So that's a huge part of this whole equation on how to eventually make more money and become more valuable is by asking the right questions to the right people. A whole new video on this topic of pivoting, but in life, there's no such thing as a linear movement. Right? There's no one out there right now living a linear life. I planned it this way and I will go from point A to point B without any deflections or any changes ever. Okay. It just doesn't happen. For one, it just doesn't happen in reality. And secondly, it would be a really shitty life because, a huge part of what makes life exciting is the uncertainty, right? I mean, we may have uncertainties that come up in life that are favorable and we may have uncertainty in life that are unfavorable, right? But we'll have both. I mean, that's an inevitability. So the concept of pivoting, okay? You've seen basketball players play, they have one hand, they have a hand on the ball, 1 feet and leg moves, but they have one that's grounded, okay? And that is their pivot foot, okay? They can move and change angles as much as they want. They can do a 360 if they wanted, but that 1 foot stays anchored, okay? And that's the important concept of pivoting. If you have a job right now and and this podcast resonates with you and you're like automatically Googling or on LinkedIn for another job, I want you to slow down, okay? You don't need to quit your job tomorrow, but it is something that you need to start thinking about if you're unhappy with where you're at. And this concept of pivoting is important because you want to have a general idea of your end goal, okay, which is kind of like the big picture. However, in terms of what happens in the next 4 weeks, what happens in the next 3 months, you have to learn to pivot. Okay, so you go one direction towards whatever you think is the right direction. If that's the right direction, great. Double down and take the next step forward. If it's not, okay, which is still very possible, pivot. Okay, from where you're at there, pivot into another direction. And you want to continuously use this methodology of moving forward and then pivoting. Moving forward and then pivoting. Okay, if you're a basketball fan, you know what I'm talking about. Okay, you may dribble a couple times, pick up the ball, and then your option may be to shoot, pass, or if you get the ball, knocked out of your hands, you can dribble again. But when you come to that point, that pivot point, that point in which you have to make a decision, okay, this is a great point to reflect and reassess your situation, reassess and go back through these list of questions and see if it's the right direction. These micro adjustments is where you will make the greatest stride, okay? There's nothing worse than going in the wrong direction for an extended period of time, because as you know, if you've ever been lost in the woods, the worst thing you can do is to continue forward and not know where you're going, because guess what? You're getting even more lost. So the same thing in this situation. If you're lost in life or in the forest, hunker down, assess what the next step is, and go from there. Okay, it's the same principle. So I hope this kind of resonated with you guys. If you're listening or you're watching this podcast, and you're unhappy about your compensation, you don't feel like you're making the money you want or want to earn, or that you may feel like you certainly have earned in your life, then these are some great things you can consider in order to make more money and become more valuable. Again, the most important concept today of all is the fact that your compensation, your pay is not from out to in. Okay, it's not something that you deserve, but it's something that you earn. Okay, so if you want to make more money, become more valuable in the marketplace by improving your skill sets, by becoming more specialized, and working on yourself through quantity, working more, or quality, becoming better. I hope that helps, guys. I'll see you on the next episode.